in the minds of people the intent to have molecular anthropology as one of their upcoming research areas or subjects for their professional areas as well. And to begin with, I myself began my research in anthropology from the Anthropological Survey of India. And before that, I was a student of University of Calcutta. And maybe because we have a varied spectrum of kind of participants today, including students, including foreign nationals. So many of us are very not aware how anthropology came to India and what was its actual requirement. So Dr. B.S. Guho is one of the person who was the person behind the genesis of anthropology in India. And he was also the founder of Anthropological Survey of India, the institute where I work. And Anthropological Survey of India is the only research organization in the governmental setup in the whole world. In the whole world, we do not have any other anthropology institute solely dedicated for the study of anthropology. So I was associated, and I am very honored and happy to be associated with such an organization which has taught me the new areas of anthropology, which has seeded in me the interest to take up such studies, which is now kind of a area which everybody is looking for. And these kind of studies are always multidisciplinary, and I'm so happy to be associated with such an organization which is also multidisciplinary in nature. So now with this, sir, may I shift to the PPT? I mean, do I have the permission to share the PPT? Just a minute. Yeah, kindly, the host or the co-host, can you just allow me to share the PPT, because here the option is deactivated. Yeah, yes,
You are
yes.
also co-host.
Yes, yes, just got it. So is it visible properly?
Yes,
Is
yes.
okay. So today, for the coming few, maybe an hour or so, I will be talking on the innovations and the applications of molecular anthropology. And I feel most of the participants who have joined today, us, are aware about anthropology and the biological anthropological perspectives. So let us have a overview of what, I don't know what has happened. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, ma'am. Good.
It says that it's being restricted by the third party. Wait. Is it visible now? Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So, as we all know that there are primary branches of anthropology, which includes biological anthropology, archaeological anthropology, cultural anthropology, and linguistic anthropology. So before I begin, I would like to request all the participants, if you have any questions, please jot it down in the chat box so that I can answer them clearly when I cover up my presentation. And don't hesitate to ask any question. Any questions are welcome. So now, because my interest or the focus of today's presentation is molecular anthropology, I will not be talking about other branches like cultural anthropology and linguistic anthropology. And let us focus on biological anthropology. So the molecular anthropology or the biological anthropology is a branch that came out of biological anthropology. And in India, many other universities offer their courses in physical anthropology, which is invariably used with biological anthropology. But there is a very minute, thin line of difference between biological anthropology and physical anthropology. Actually, when the anthropologists have tried to explore the morphological study of anthropology, and the morphological aspects of a human being, for example, the height measurements, weight, kind of skin color, hair type, ear form, all these were considered to be physical anthropology. But the moment scientists try to have the invasive methods of understanding a particular community, for example, blood grouping and other, biological studies, then it was renamed as biological anthropology. So it may be invariably used by many universities, but it has a very thin line of difference, and its perspectives are also very minutely different from each other. Now, thing is that what made molecular anthropology come in focus? Because molecular anthropology was never termed. And recently, very recently, because if we talk about decades, if you talk about centuries, I would like to mention it to be very recently that the field of molecular anthropology in general was being first acknowledged in the year 1962 by Emil Zucker-Kandel at the Wenner Gren Foundation sponsored conference where the leading anthropologists took part. And soon after this, what happened? Derek Roberts in the year 1968, he started using the term anthropological genetics in the UK's Royal Anthropological Institute, and these two terms were invariably used also. And when anthropological genetics and human genetics came up in action, it was said that they were invariably used, and the use of the two important aspects were also very significant. What happened is since its inception, the molecular anthropology has been characterized by the application and the techniques from disciplines like biochemistry, population genetics, and evolutionary biology. And these questions include understanding the history and the prehistoric migrations also. Today, anthropological genetics and both the molecular anthropology or the biological anthropologies overlap, and they try to answer the questions relating to the theories and methods that include lack of meaningful engagement with indigenous groups, which has rarely drawn its attention for genomic research and the need for whole genome sequencing. And but why I'm talking about all these things? Because in anthropology there were lack of representation in the genetic databases. If you go and see that biotechnologies, then molecular biology have their representation in the global database. But when you talk of anthropology, there is a lack of representation. And this lack of representation has made to initiate the area of molecular anthropology, which will have its fast growing branch and will promise for both past and future. And it will also try to answer very many questions. What these questions will be? These questions will be invariably to answer the history, the population movements, and also the complex diseases which we are going through every day. As we proceed with the presentation, I will be giving some examples wherein you will get to know what is the importance of molecular anthropology and how this molecular anthropological aspects have been the interest of many scientists together now. So what we can do, being an anthropologist and being a molecular anthropologist. First is we need to understand what is DNA. Like if I talk in a very layman language, what is a DNA? We all know the definition of DNA, but what actually is DNA? So if I give you a sample of blood, so we will be confused whether to have the DNA from the whole blood or any particular portion of the blood will yield that DNA. So I'm sure that many of us are very not aware from which part of this blood we actually get the DNA. If you take blood sample and allow it to settle for some time, you will find 3 layers of segments that happens in the whole blood sample. The one that settles at the bottom part is the RBC or the red blood cells. And many of us feel that red blood cell is the only part of the blood which will have the DNA because it is the most visible part of the whole blood. And the other part which remains is the white blood cells or the white blood corpuscles. And the another important part is the serum or the plasma. So actually, when we are interested in DNA, we have nothing to do with the RBC because RBCs are not nucleated part of the blood. It does not contain a nucleus. So the DNA is within the nucleus, and the non-nucleated part of course, will not contain the DNA. So we are only interested, or we will only concentrate in the part called WBC. And if you take a 5 ml of a blood sample, maybe only 0.5 ml is the WBC. Rest are white blood cells and rest are the serum. So we try to clean up the whole blood, and we try to extract, or we try to clean up the WBC part, from where we, through different process and through different extraction procedures, we extract the DNA. Now, a human DNA is also known as a book of life. Why? Because DNA is the only part of our body which has answers to everything that will happen in your life. For example, how tall you will be, what will be your hair color, what will be your eye color, what will be the skin color, what the way you will behave, what kind of diseases you will have in your lifetime. Everything is written in your book of life. And when we were in school, and when we are into a curriculum, for example, if we buy a book on physical anthropology, and for example, tomorrow you have an exam wherein your syllabus asks you to have the readings on DNA. So obviously you will not go through the chapters of evolution, you will not go through the chapters of primates and many others. You will only concentrate on the chapter called DNA. So each part of the chapters of our DNA is known as the gene, which encodes the information responsible for that portion only. For example, the skin color is written in a particular gene. The height is written in a particular gene. So each chapters are known as the genes. Okay? And each gene forms a spectrum of a very coiled structure which forms our whole DNA. So the DNA is the book of life which has information for each and everything that we require. Now, has any one of us, do we have any idea that how much long, or what will be the length of a DNA? Any of us, I mean, you can also write down in the chat box if you feel that, do any of us have any idea of how long our DNA will be? Because when we extract the DNA, it remains so coiled and it is a very minute structure. But if we try to even uncoil it, what will be the length of the DNA? I think many of us are not aware, and many of us will be now amazed to know what is its actual length. So, to mention in numbers, if let us go to some very, mere examples. For example, in English, we have 26 alphabets, and these 26 alphabets codes and decodes and permutes and combines to form words. For example, CAT combines to form cat. ANTHROPOLOGY combines to form anthropology. So when you combine these letters, it forms a meaningful word, right? Now, DNA has only 4 letters, A, T, G, and C. It is not so complicated of having 26 letters. It has only 4 letters, A, T, G, and C. That's all. Now, this A, T, G, C letters combine, permute, and combine to form different coding letters, which forms the protein that will form the information and send information to the brain, that this codes for that, and this is the function that you have to play. Because if I say the cat is sitting there, I will form it with certain 26 letters. Okay. So to send this particular type of a signal to the brain, the gene should send some information which will be coded through these 4 letters, and only 3 letters at a time can form a word. So now if I put all these letters together, and each letter, for example, A, T, G, C, G, C, A, T, like this, if I arrange, and if I arrange all these letters in a row, and it counts up to 3.7 billion times, if you start writing A, T, G, C 3.7 billion times, the length of which, it's the length it will cover is the actual length of the DNA. DNA, human DNA is 3.7 billion times long. It is called the base pair. I mean, each letter is known as a base pair. So if I arrange 3.7 times each base pair, it is the actual length of the DNA. And to give a very, example, if you bind Earth to Moon 10 times, that is the actual length of a DNA. If you uncoil a single stretch of a DNA, then it will be able to bind Moon to Earth 10 times. So you can understand how long is our DNA. And very interestingly, only 30 to 40% of our DNA is now being used. So we have the conserved region of DNA, which has not been used, or maybe in the coming times it will be used. And how it gets used, I will give you an example. So this is the basic idea of what a DNA is, and this is the forming stone, or the basic, the building block of the molecular anthropology. So until and unless you understand DNA, you will not be able to understand the subject. You will not be able to apply it in different forms. And this DNA has two forms. One is the empty DNA, another is the nuclear DNA. Nuclear DNA is what we have it from both of our parents. And empty DNA is the part which we receive only from the mother. So if I analyze empty DNA, I will be able to get the information, everything through the mother's line. And how empty DNA is important and how nuclear DNA is important, let us have an idea. So what are its applications? First, I would like to begin with ancient DNA, because from history to present, that's the trend. So what is the ancient DNA? Ancient DNA is nothing but the form of a DNA which will only try to analyze the maternal DNA or the mitochondrial DNA, empty DNA, because it is so old and it's so degraded that most of the times we are unable to have the nuclear DNA. And empty DNA, because it's circular in shape, it's stored for a better, longer period of time than the nuclear DNA, which is a linear DNA. So all of us have the idea, or all of us have been studying Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, then Indus Valley civilization and everything, which was there in very much in our school curriculum, and we have been interested in Indus Valley civilization, Harappan civilization, everything. So recently, we are interested in understanding the Harappan civilization and Indus Valley civilization, and also because in linguistics, certain linguists have mentioned that there were Aryan invasion during the Harappan civilization. And we also know that the Saraswati River has declined all of a sudden, and we don't know the reason. So recently we have taken the interest from Anthropological Survey of India to understand the decline of the river Saraswati, and also to understand whether any invasion has already happened or not. So to know this, first what we have to do, we have to understand and we have to study all the skeletal materials available with us of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. And proudly I say that Anthropological Survey of India houses all the skeletal materials excavated from Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. And few are still in the process of excavation, which is with Archaeological Survey of India. But yes, we are studying all those materials together. Now, thing is that the more initially how to know that whether there was any invasion or not. To understand whether there was any invasion, it is very prominent to know that whether the bones or the skeletal materials that we are studying have any cut marks, have any kind of trauma expressions, have any kind of impressions that says that there was a war. Because invasion means people have invaded, people have killed, people have a tough fight, and then they started living in the area. But invariably, if we as anthropologists say that there was no invasion, but it was a migration, how to prove it? Migration means maybe there was a smooth, incoming people who started living in the area, who have adopted this kind of cultures. They have mixed together. There were admixtures, and they were people from other parts of the world who came to India and they started living. So when we try to understand those samples, we analyze the DNA samples from the bone materials, and those bone materials are giving us different types of ideas. Like some said that yes, there were the old South Asian civilization, and it is not completely Indian. There were invasions from Mesopotamia, Egypt, this and that. But recently, when we have analyzed one women DNA sample, we found that yeah, there were individuals who have invaded or who have come from the Middle East, and there were people of steppe I mean civilization also, steppe lands also. But it's not that there were invasion, there could be migration, and we are trying to solve this mystery through this kind of analysis. Now when we come to another example, that what kind of food they ate, what kind of water they used to have, what kind of food they used to have, these kind of questions and answers will also solve the answers whether they used to migrate from one place to another, what their actual culture was, who were the main kind of people who were engaged in their hunting gathering activities, or whether they were forest dwellers, whether they were dependent on any seafoods, and various type of answers. And in the field of ancient DNA, and there is a remarkable progress. It is not only the ancient DNA that we are concentrating now. Now we are also trying to identify and substantiate the ancient DNA data along with the isotope analysis, because water contains hydrogen and oxygen, soil contains nitrogen, and if we decode all this oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen, carbon, this kind of isotopes, we will be able to understand what actual kind of food they ate. So we will be able to reconstruct the environment together. So now the molecular anthropology is not restricted to ancient DNA or DNA. Now we are trying to have the multidisciplinary approach of including biochemists, then microbiologists together to understand the microbial genomics for the ancient DNA research. Further, nobody of us, being anthropologist or student of anthropology, we never thought that anthropology or the study on anthropology can ever grab a Nobel Prize. But yes, beside being human molecular anthropologists, the genomes of these hominins, for example, the Neanderthal man, who were the Neanderthals were known to be our just predecessors. I mean, in the line of evolution, just after Homo sapiens neanderthalensis were Homo sapiens sapiens. So there were interactions, whether there were interactions, whether there were inbreeding, whether there were any interaction between the ancient human species. We the extinct, I mean, Neanderthals were the extinct hominins. This man, Professor Vante Pabo, who grabbed this Nobel Prize for such a discovery of the Denisovan individuals, who are known to be a intermediate kind of a population, those whose decoding of ancient DNA will answer to all the missing links that we were losing these days. So now we are also the person, or a molecular anthropology is also a discipline which is recognized in the world of Nobel Prize. Uh, uh, Till now, I was talking of empty DNA, a part of a DNA, a very small part. When I talk of whole nuclear DNA, it's 3.7 billion base pair. And when I talk of empty DNA, it is only 16,000 base pair. So in front of a nuclear DNA, you can understand how minute a mitochondrial DNA is and what power it has. It is actually the powerhouse, and what power it has, it can decode any evolution. Now, when we have conquered over this one gene or one part of the DNA, now it's time we know the whole genome, because we have now covered each and every chapter, which is the gene, and now we are interested to go through the whole book. And to understand the whole book, we have the next generation sequencing or the whole genome sequencing, which allows us to sequence or study the whole human genome. Now, see, before we get into the whole genome sequencing, we should also know what actually was a high throughput sequencing. This is the first high throughput sequencing machine. This was called ABI 3730 DNA analyzer, and it has the capacity of understanding or sequencing each and every gene or the portion of the gene that you give. For example, tomorrow you have an exam and you don't have a book of your own and you have borrowed the book from your friend. So it is very evident that you will not go to a shop and ask to photocopy the whole book. Okay, the chapters that you require, you will only photocopy those portions. So we also do the same thing. What we do to understand a particular disease or a particular change in the DNA, we will try to study only those particular portion. And that is the application of this sequencer. The ABI 3730 DNA analyzer is the first of its kind, having the high throughput sequencing in whole Eastern India, and it was the first machine which was installed in Anthropological Survey of India's DNA laboratory, and the other one was installed at the Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, which is at Hyderabad. As time progressed, we also felt the need, as I said, to understand the whole genome or the human genome. And the study of the whole genome or the human genome was initiated in the late 1900th century, around 1990s or something, when it was published, the whole genome of the human, and it was published in Nature, the journal. And Nature has only one volume of the book which covers the sequence of all the genes of the human DNA. And very fortunately, Anthropological Survey of India has the copy of that Nature publication. So, Human Genome Project was such a project, a brilliant project that not only included anthropologists, it was a multidisciplinary research or a work that included molecular biologists, geneticists, biotechnologists, and they worked day and night together to have this data published so minutely. And what is the help, or what is the outcome or the benefit or the significance of such a project? Now, if you have decoded or if you have the full book written, you will know which which disease is responsible for which gene, change in which particular gene or change in which particular form of the DNA, point of the DNA will cause this particular disease. So with that, we have now understood more than 1800 diseases after we have the Human Genome Project done. So these are the outcomes or the very significant points of Human Genome Project. And it was from 70s to 80s, and it was published in the 90s. And it was very highly conceptual. And the Human Genome Project is to combine the effort of the world to plot the sequence, for which India has also provided their samples. 2 or 3 samples were from India as well. And the combined efforts of all these skills should arouse many differences in both pure and impure forms. Now, what is the concern of anthropologists or anthropologists of India, or the Anthropological Survey of India in particular, is India is the only country which has varied culture, which has varied origins, which has varied kind of, the human variation is huge. You cannot compare a population belonging from South India having the similar culture of people belonging from East India, Northeast India, Northern India. The food culture to the food having pattern, to its lifestyle, to its occupation, everything is so different. So here is the need of ethnic based or the ethnic related genome, or to understand each and every population. We should now have representative from each and every ethnic community, so that we have the understanding of each and every cultural zone or ecological zones together. Now, so the power of this genomics will try to also help anthropology to overcome some of its limitations. What are its limitations? The entire genome will open up the avenue for the identification of genetic determinants, for evolutionary biology. For example, if I have a high fever, maybe I get cured by paracetamol 600, and somebody who is a very close friend belonging from South India or from North India, I belong from East India, I am a Bengali, so maybe he or she will not act too much in paracetamol. If she or he is given another dose of Disprin or Dolo 650, maybe he will react. So, thing is that our genetics or the gene pools are so different that our interest, the genetic interest to solve those mysteries of disease is also very different. And the advent of genomics is already revolutionizing research in molecular anthropology, and it seemed to be destined to attract even more interest. How? Now, after we have understood that each and every book of fragment of life, I have said that we are now into the whole genome sequencing, and this is C. When you see the size of the machine of the whole, I mean the DNA sequencer, it was so huge. But now to read the whole book of life, which is 3.7 billion, see the size of the machine. Because I'm interested in understanding the cancer genetics, I would like to have some examples of cancer genetics and how molecular anthropology is being revolutionizing efforts for understanding the cancer genetics. So, cancer is known as the emperor of all maladies. And this was a statement given by Siddharth Mukherjee, who is a very famous oncologist. And he also have a book named Emperor of All Maladies. So cancer was actually a myth, which it was a myth that cancer is a disease of the developed countries. Okay. But the fact is, low and middle income countries now bear the majority share of the burden of cancer. History says that when there were any kind of war for cancer, what used to happen, when there were, for example, if anybody was detected with breast cancer, they will go for the castration or caution of the mammary cells, and they used to say that melancholia or kind of depression is the cause for having such a disease. Now, there is another myth that it's too expensive and there are too many obstacles to prevent or treat cancer in the developing countries. But the fact is, much can be done to prevent, treat, and palliate cancer even in resource constrained settings. Now, I again say, and I again force on this statement of mine that we are not medical practitioners. We are anthropologists. Medical practitioners are the one who believe in diagnosis, who believes in treatment. But as an anthropologist, as a student of the discipline that tries to understand human as a whole, we are into the preventive part. We are into prognosis and not into diagnosis. We will devise actions which will not allow a disease to grow. Okay. So the time has come to challenge and disapprove the assumptions. Now, what thing is that there were many symptoms of this breast cancer, and there were also many gene changes or the genetics of the breast cancer. There are tumor suppressor genes, there are oncogenes. So the mutation or changes in this portion will affect that. This many theories, but what happens is in the whole world. This is why this is important for molecular anthropology, for us to be aware in anthropology is whole of the world says that certain kind of mutations or changes. Mutations are the basic changes. For example, a portion of the DNA should have the sequence as CATT. Now, if somebody is having at CGTT, it is a mutation because it is not normal. Our brain knows that if it is CATT, it should code for example, a protein named arginine. But if it finds that in that portion it is CGTT, then what will happen is it will stop its function. It will not function at all. So here is the mutation which stops the function of a gene and it starts behaving in a different manner. It causes cancer, it causes many other things. So in India or in the whole world, we are dependent on some chemotherapeutic doses for the treatment of cancer. And these chemotherapeutic doses are administered based on the research of the highly developed countries. India has no representation in those the total research for this cancer genomics. Now, what happens? Maybe in America, with those chemotherapeutic diseases and those oral administrations, they get cured. But in India, a portion of or the maybe the affected region gets cured, but along with that, other portions or the other organs of the body starts its malfunctioning. And this is the very kind of pathetic portion of the or the pathetic part of the treatment of cancer in India. Now, when the whole world has reported that there are this kind of mutations in the P53 or the tumor protein 53 gene, which is responsible for cancer, when we sequenced the whole P53 gene, we found no mutation at all. Complete absence of mutation in the P53 gene. Thus, this is important because now we should understand the ethnic specific mutations to understand and to treat diseases in India. And there is a need to take up this work immediately. And see, these are the 4 mutation spectrums which I have shown. And you see the double overlapping lines are the mutations that has been detected. And these 4 are all novel mutations or the new mutations, those we have discovered in our own laboratory for the cancer genomics. And these are responsible for having breast cancer among the population of Eastern India. And these mutations were not found elsewhere in India. So if we have also reported this to the cancer gene bank NCBI, so this kind of foundations will help the whole India to grow and to stop the genetic spectrum and the disease spectrum of India. Okay. And these were also reported in some of the newspapers. Now, recently we have also, each one of us, either we ourselves were affected with this disease or some of us very close to us were affected with the disease called corona or the COVID-19. So COVID-19 is nothing but a kind of a virus that has a crown. And this had the capability to invade our DNA and act with the ACE2 gene. And everybody, those who had gone through some of the newspapers those times, those who had taken interest in the COVID has known this particular 2 terms, COVID-19 and ACE2 gene. So DNA is our book of life and ACE2 gene is a very important chapter. Now, if we have the complete understanding of each of the communities that are in India, the tribal communities, the PVTGs, the other communities, ACE gene, then we will be sure whether COVID will be able to invade this ACE gene for this population or not. And the prognosis and not the diagnosis will be done. And that is the reason we have seen the developed areas or the urban centers were much affected with the COVID. But if we go to the rural sectors, there were no much effect. If you go to the tribes, very few were affected. Andaman, the 4 or 5 most important tribes of Andaman, PVTGs of Andaman, Jarwa, Shompen, Orao, they were not at all affected. Many of the PVTGs residing in Odisha were not affected. Those who are having their contact with the urban centers, some of them were of course affected, but those who are living in their traditional habitat were not at all affected. So there are also certain environmental factors and its correlation which will allow us to have the genetic screening as well. So anthropology has approached cancer either as individual experiences with an emphasis in the narratives and subjectives of patients or as an institutional arrangement that frame how the knowledge about treatments and prognosis eventually shape individual experiences. Now, with this, I'm going to a very different kind of example that will allow you to understand why there is a need to understand molecular anthropology and how molecular anthropology is important. In the Amazon basin, Yanomamo population is a community which is completely untouched. We don't have much genetic study on that. Of course, cultural studies are there. So there were a team of microbiologists who invaded that region, but they could not fetch any kind of sample from them because they refrained from giving sample or something. Yanomami population have a very typical kind of practice. They do not defecate in their own territorial area. They will often, or they will every time defecate out of their territory. So in the morning after they have defecated, they went back to their territorial area, and the microbiologists went there and they collected all these fecal matters. Okay, the stool samples they collected and they brought back to their laboratories. Now it was interesting. The results showed that Yanomami population have significantly greater microbial diversity than any other population and harbor several different types of bacteria that are missing or reduced in the industrialized population. And researcher found that this kind of microbes, what it is doing, it is actually not allowing certain diseases to happen. India is fighting with obesity. India is fighting with diabetes. India is fighting with coronary diseases. But this population has microbes in their gut that is helping them not to have obesity, not to have coronary disease, or and not to have diabetes as well. These microbes are actually preventing them. So we need to get a better understanding of the microbiome because they are lost before they are lost. And in India, we are the only country which has 75 PVTGs as a treasure for us. And these 75 PVTGs, or the particularly vulnerable tribal groups, are residing in the areas which are not in contact with any urban centers. They are completely in their forest dwelling areas. They are completely in their traditional modes. They do not consume outside food. They do not have take this modern medicines. They do not take any preservative dependent food. So their microbiome or the gut is unaltered, and they, if anthropological study survey of India is already studying this PBTGs for the microbiome profile, and we are coming up with results which are giving us a spectrum of new kind of microbiome levels which are not present in the urban people. So that is the need. And some indigenous population of because if we see that the bacteria or the microbiome plays a key role in the human health. We all take probiotics every day to keep our gut health healthy. We take curd, we take any kind of probiotics, we take synthetic probiotics, and if we stop on probiotics, we find that we are having stomach upset, we are having digestion issues, and many things. So this functions in to digest the food that we eat. If someday we or many of us have felt that after we take the antibiotics, we face certain issues. We face digestion issues, we face maybe some constipation issues, and many others. So what happens is when we take the antibiotics, it not only kills the harmful bacteria, it also kills the beneficial bacteria from our gut or the stomach. Now, along with having functional microbiome, we are also dependent on some other microbiome which are residing in our guts. Now, thing is that they are providing us the immunity, and these autoimmune diseases like diabetes, like coronary disease, like asthma, then obesity, these are all functioned through this kind of microbiomes. And we are so much kind of having the practice of taking antibiotics very now and then, we unknowingly we are killing the beneficial part of our body as well. Now, it is the time that we have the understanding of this microbiome, and we also try to generate the understanding or the multidisciplinary approach of proteomics, where protein will be important, where nutrigenomics or nutritional genomics will be important, and the epigenomes or the epigenomics will be important. And altogether, if we have this understanding, we will also know that how molecular anthropology will be able to explore the genetic admixture between different human groups, revealing the complex interactions and interbreeding. Because, I mean, 2 to 3 generation back also, we were very, I mean, Indian population were very strict in marriage patterns. And there are also many communities which do not allow marrying outside their communities. Actually, they were reserving their own gene pool. The moment we started having marriage with other communities or with other kind of caste or community, there is an admixture that has started, and this complete admixture has grown the frequency of diseases. There are a number of diseases that are coming up due to this admixture in the population. And epigenetics is the part where the heritage or the expression of the alterations get reflected. And anthropologists are also very interested to understand the expression, gene expression. For example, my gene has a mutation, but it does not have much expression which was required. But another person having no mutation can have a more expression of that gene, and it depends. So, the power of genomic approaches ultimately will help anthropology overcome some of its inherent limitations. And the entire study will try to revolutionize the research of molecular anthropology and promise to continue to do so in the near future. So I feel that these are the very basic examples or the very kind of constrained extra examples which I have tried to give or which I have tried to show you. And I would like to say that anthropology or molecular anthropology or DNA is not restricted to any kind of discipline. It is so multidisciplinary that you can have its idea generated for its application in any field of human research, be it forensic, be it understanding our own future, be it understanding our own ancient forms, or be it understanding any kind of disease. May it be the paternity testing, the forensic analysis. These are the very basic kind of things that we have done in molecular anthropology. But now the time has come when we are collaborating with microbiologists, biotechnologists, understanding the metagenomics and decoding each and every part of of our human cell. And that is the reason when we all knew that corona will grab in all the human bodies and we will not be able to survive. And then also we came up with the vaccines and the research and the immunity and the population specific immunity, which has helped us to resist and adapt to the virus even more scary than corona. So thank you so much for listening to me. And the ultimate goal for understanding molecular anthropology is to serve and educate the society about the human science and culture, because we are dedicated to understand the variation and we are dedicated to understand our genesis, our history, our ancestry, and how overall with the variation and ancestry we will lead up to. Because with the invent of AI and many more things, we might create artificial things, assuming that this might happen, but it is the play of the gene or the conserved region of the gene which has not taken its role till date. And the moment it will take, we do not know how we will be shaped up to. So thank you again for your patient hearing. And I feel I could answer or I could have given you some kind of motivation that why this kind of research is important and why you should have your interest grown in molecular anthropology particularly. And now I'm open to, I mean, any kind of questions that you have. And any type of questions are welcome. Don't restrict your minds. You can speak up. Thank you so much.
Participants can unmute themselves. Have given the unmute option. One by one, they can ask. Rather than that, you can also raise your hand. There is an option in Zoom meeting that you can raise your hand. You can take up the questions one by one. Thank you. Welcome. And I would like to heartily welcome Professor M.R. Gangadhar sir, Vice Chancellor of Chamarajanagar University. Sir, we welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Datta Niranjan. Hello.
Yes, sir, you are audible. Yes.
Thank you, Datta Niranjan. And hello.
Sir, yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Dr. Abhishekta, I'm sorry I joined very late because I was in
It's
another
okay.
UGC meeting. So anyway, it is my very interesting area, and you have highlighted just 10 minutes back I joined. I have done an excellent presentation, and it is very informative, especially after this COVID. Everybody is in a fear, even if they get a small fever also, they were afraid about their health, and even because of our dietary practices, sometimes our health may not permit to for a journey or some other issues. This one, so you have given a very good information. It is very useful, and we can follow. Thank you, Abhishekta, for your nice.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for joining also.
Welcome.
Sir, now student participants can do two things. One, they can raise your hand and they can directly ask question and clarify their answers with ma'am. Otherwise, you can post your questions in the chat and we can clarify it one by one. Ma'am, we have a question that how we can solve genetic problems in same caste using molecular anthropology. We have a question. Yes.
Yeah. So thing is that I just forgot to mention one important thing, that each one of us shared a similar pattern of DNA. Okay, every individual have the same molecule. I mean, the human DNA, but we differ from each other in terms of only 0.01 percentage. So we share 99.9% similar DNA. But if you calculate that in terms of that 3.7 billion, you will see that more than 3 lakh variation exists. Now, how to solve the genetic problems? I mean, if you say genetic problems like thalassemia, if you say genetic problems like some inherent diseases, so it is something which is a community based, which we call the community approach to solve a problem. So it is an individual thing, and there not only the genetics, but genetics will only help us, or the molecular anthropology will only help us to understand the kind of the disease or its disease prevalence. But to solve it, we will have to use the other most important tool of anthropology, which is cultural anthropology, and which is the psychological anthropology, where we will aware and counsel people not to marry within the same group. For example, if somebody is detected with beta thalassemia carrier, we will not encourage him or her to marry someone who is also beta thalassemia carrier. So here lies the importance of anthropology, wherein we can use each and every subdiscipline of anthropology to combine together. But if you say how only molecular anthropology will help us to solve, it will be only genetic counseling and nothing more than that. Better we can understand its expression through the real-time PCR done and through the total mutation spectrum that we can do. But the real role, because genotype plus phenotype is the individual. Genotype is your genetics, phenotype is your lifestyle and other cultural factors that totally make you human. So it is not only genetics, but also the cultural factor that makes us a social animal. So both the important things are important here.
Ma'am, shall we use the along with this counseling to the that means boy or girl, anyone, or to the family? Along with this, we can go for the stem cell therapy for this. It can be used.
Actually, you are talking about the diagnosis or the treatment. Okay, so we are not the right person to talk about the treatment. So
Okay.
it will be administered by the right clinician who is going through the case. But we as an anthropologist, as a prognostic, factor, we will like to say that no other individual to be born with such a disease. We can think of that, but if somebody is diseased and if somebody is facing severe issues, of course he or she should go to a clinician and have the treatment done, be it stem cell therapy or be any kind of therapy that will help the person to survive.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the information. Very informative session, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, what future career opportunities do we have? Yes. Yes. Thing is that when you have your master degree done in anthropology, you don't have a degree in molecular anthropology. Molecular anthropology is a very specialized field which you have to take your interest and start your research with. Because in India, we don't have any degree in molecular anthropology as such. You have to have your degree in anthropology masters with a specialization in biological anthropology or physical anthropology, and you should have a paper in genetics which will allow you to take up the research in the genetic field and will allow you also to understand the molecular anthropology in a better way. For that, in India, if we think of getting attached with any organization that is working on molecular anthropology, that is of course Anthropological Survey of India. You have Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, you have Birbal Sahani Institute of Paleosciences, you have National Institute of Biomedical Genomics, and several others. So once you generate your interest, there will be ways out, but in the very basic form, you should have your specialization done in biological anthropology to pursue your future prospects in molecular anthropology. What challenges are faced in extracting and analyzing? Yeah. Yes, actually there are challenges. I mean, if you talk of challenges to analyze ancient DNA samples, it is huge. Okay, so very casually we can isolate DNA. I mean, the much casually I'm saying, don't take it so much casually, but when we are so much adapted or acquainted in and extracting the human DNA from blood, it is very casual. I mean, you don't need to go through many kind of procedures and protocols. But yes, when you extract ancient DNA, it has to be totally free of any kind of particles from outside. We need to have many levels of decontamination done. And after we try to extract 100 or 200 samples, we come up to successful 10 or 12 samples. And many times after even analyzing or even extracting 1,000 samples, we do not have one successful DNA. So it all depends on the preservation of the materials, the particular part of the material which contains the DNA, because whole human skeleton does not contain ancient DNA. There are very few parts of the human body that does contain human DNA. So if that portion is well preserved, we will get ancient DNA. But yes, it takes too much toll and it is not that easy like nuclear DNA. Are there any certification courses which we need to further specialize? Yeah. For joining Anthropological Survey of India, there are opportunities that you can join as junior research fellows or senior research fellows after you complete your master's degree. And every year we have staff selection commission, which advertises for the post of research associates in physical anthropology. And we also have openings for anthropologists, but for that you need to have a period of experience gathered. But to join as junior or senior research fellows, you should have at least 55% marks in your master degree, and should have, if you're interested in molecular anthropology, your specialization should be in physical or biological anthropology, and you can have your form filled, and there will be two levels of things done. One is examination, written examination. After that, we conduct interviews. And if you're lucky enough, you are here, and we welcome you to be part of this organization. So I think I don't see any more questions in the chat box. Yeah, I think Domi Bia, I think he has joined from some African countries, I feel. So he has asked to share the PPT, but I'm so sorry, it contains some data which are government data, so I will not be able to share my PPT. But if you have any queries, or if you need to know anything in proper, you can of course write to me, and I will provide my email ID in the chat box, so you can email me, and I will try to solve any of your queries if it is known for to me, because I'm neither Google nor ChatGPT. So yeah, that's my mail ID. You can mail me for any. My chat box is deactivated, I think.
No, ma'am, it is active.
So I have texted to the coordinator. It does not give me any option to send to all. Okay, now it's activated. Yeah. And also, I would like to mention that we will be starting with some opportunities for interns in to work in our DNA labs, because all the regional centers of our Anthropological Survey of India are well equipped with the DNA laboratories. So we will be starting with the internship opportunities. So anybody who would like to have their internship done with us, they can write an intent letter. And also, if any of you, while having your master degree, wants to have your dissertation in any specialized forms of anthropology, like in molecular anthropology, in some disease or something, you can also give us your intention letter. We also conduct dissertations in our laboratories, and that will be completely free of cost. You have to only bring your samples of the particular disease or something that you try to do. You have to do your own field work, but we will help you in analyzing all those samples. Rajendra Prasad sir, namaste sir. The genetic ancestry of the Harappan status of the analysis, and sir, we are in the mode of publishing it. It will soon come. We have analyzed. We have very good data of Burzaham and Lothal. So soon it will be published, and I will talk to you in person, because it is not yet published. I cannot speak about it here. I will definitely talk to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir.
Hope there is no question after this.
No, I feel.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Abhishekta Ghosh Roy, madam. So the topic which was covered, many facets of DNA and molecular anthropology, from the beginning of how this book of DNA is a book of life, and including speaking about the diseases, and how the skin color, height of the person that will be differentiated by the DNA and all, and also empty DNA and nuclear DNA. The differences also explored many things and all, and many other aspects of molecular anthropology, how that will be helpful to the society, identifying the diseases, as well as and also covered something about the corona diseases, how this is impacted on the different population and the tribal population, disease and all. It was very interesting. In fact, many times. The anthropology is combination of many knowledge. In fact, we can say that there is a socio-cultural, biological, linguistic aspect, and archaeological aspect. Since it is a holistic approach, we need to understand many facets of human being and all. This is one of the another facet we need to be understand that how these biological aspects are impact on the life of the human beings and all. And many factors you covered, madam. It was very interesting, in fact, since I was very much interested in this topic, and hope that our participants also enjoyed with your presentation as well as the knowledge which you have divulged to all of us. This I hope many questions have been answered by the Dr. Shikta Ghosh, madam. I thank specifically. I thank to Professor M.R. Gangadhar sir also joined. Is my guide also. He joined the our webinar and also wished us, and also he spoke something about the topic and all. And also I must be thankful to Datta Niranjan. He's also one of the co-hosts of this webinar and also it's going on smoothly because of him. And all the participants from Karnataka and other part of India, many of we received around 100 plus registration in fact. So, but participation was more than 50. Now it is to 3 who's gone. Okay. And also from some participants from the outside India also joined our webinar. It was very interesting and all. We are very thankful to Dr. Vishikta madam and all the participants who have joined our webinar. Thank you so much for one and all.
Thank you
you,
so
sir.
much. Thank you
Sir,
so much.
mute, madam.
So, but at the end note, I would like to end with a comment. Actually, I was very fortunate to meet Andre Bete. Many of you who are the student of anthropologists must be knowing him. So Andre Bete sir said once that there are two groups of human beings on this earth. One, those who are anthropologists, and the other who are the subjects of those anthropologists. So, anthropology, I feel, is a subject who is the father or the mother of all the disciplines because we study human beings and anything under the sky comes under the purview of anthropology. So now it is your decision whether you will be anthropologist or the subject of anthropologist. So I wish all of you who have joined here all the best, and I wish to see many of you joining us with this molecular anthropological parade, and we will grow together. Thank you so much, sir, for having me here, and I also enjoyed having this interaction. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would request, sir, mute madam also. I would request everybody to switch on their camera so that we can have a snapshot of the event. I would request all of you, all the participants, so that we can have a snapshot. Yes. So lovely response.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. We would love to meet you in the next webinar. We are waiting for the next webinar too. So thank you very much, and have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rajendra Prasad sir.
Sir, thank you very much.
There also I must remember.